Deku, the young boy who dreams of becoming a hero, is quirkless. But what if he ate the gum devil fruit? How would his life change?
People are not born equal. Yet despite knowing this, it did not stop Izuku Midoriya from doing what he thought was right. Sure, his quirk had yet to manifest despite the fact he was already 4, and that most, if not all, of his classmates had their quirks. Enough Koch-chan, said Izuku bravely despite trembling himself while standing in front of another boy who was crying on the ground. You already made him cry. I won't let you abuse your quirk and harm others. Oi Deku, said the spiky blonde kid with red eyes as he smacked his fist into his palm, activating his quirk to make a small explosion. The quirkless wonder thinks he can play hero. This boy was Katsuki Bakugo, who was Izuku's friend until he got his quirk. Let's get him, shouted another child, his fingers extending until it was twice as tall as he was. Another chubby child with red bat wings that allowed him to hover above the others nodded in agreement as the 3 boys charged in to attack Izuku. After quickly ganging up on Izuku with the long finger boy holding Izuku hostage while Katsuki and the chubby kid pummeled him, they went off to declare themselves the hero, while identifying Izuku as the villain. After all, the heroes always won in Katsuki's definition of a hero. With a derisive scoff, they left Izuku on the ground without caring about his well-being. Izuku managed to crawl back up and away from the playground, as the child he had been defending had already run away without even trying to help. Yet Izuku didn't hesitate to help out anyone in need, as it was just in his nature to do so. He wanted to become a hero, like All Might. Izuku's definition of a hero was those who could save others, even at the cost of his own. That video of All Might's hero debut certainly made an impact on him, as he watched it probably over 10,000 times. It was his source of inspiration. Ah, that burns, cried Izuku as he gently probed his injuries. Katsuki had been amplifying his punches with explosions upon impact, as his quirk allowed his sweat to excrete a chemical similar to nitroglycerin from his palms, and ignited to create explosions. The chubby one merely had weight behind his punches, while the last skinny one merely held Izuku, preventing him from escaping or even attacking back. One day, I'll get my quirk, said Izuku as he raised his fist up to the blue sky. One day, I'll show them that I can be a hero. You should give up. It's impossible for him to develop a quirk, said the doctor heartlessly, not even trying to be gentle with the news as he leaned back in his chair. Izuku dropped his All Might action figure in shock, as the doctor dropped the news on him like a 10-ton anvil on his head. Why, is there something wrong with him, doctor? Asked Inko Midoriya with a worried tone. Other children his age have already manifested their quirks, but my Izuku is the only one in his kindergarten that has yet to show. Inko was, of course, annoyed by the doctor's crass behavior, but pushed through it for her son. The doctor began to explain that by the age of 4, the said child should manifest a quirk that belonged to one of his parents, or a composite of both. During the early years of quirk research, it was found that anyone with a quirk did not have a second joint in the pinky toe. The proximal interphalangeal joint was rather useless in the pinky toe for humans, as it wasn't used. This was used to represent the next stage of evolution. And since Izuku has 2 joints in his pinky toe, concluded the doctor with a bored tone, the chances of him developing a quirk is 0, no matter how old he is. We've had late bloomers before, but Izuku will never be one of them. Crestfallen, Inko guided her child back to their apartment, unable to bear the fact her child's dream was shattered. Her husband, Hisashi, was nowhere to be found as usual, as he worked abroad. Inko gained a tick as how her husband was never at home to spend time with Izuku. When Izuku was 1, Hisashi was already out of the house. As Izuku sat in a room motionlessly, she quickly pulled up the All Might debut video in hopes of cheering her son up. After making sure he was staying there, she began to look up articles about quirks in hope that the doctor was wrong. After all, who knew if what the doctor had said was true? Not everything was absolute, and the first quirk users may have had 2 joints. Not to mention, she had to make sure her son had a future even if he was quirkless. She would always love him, and the doctor reassured her, saying that at least 20% of the population was the same as Izuku. As her research through articles and other sources went through the night, her despair grew. What the doctor had failed to mention that the 20% of the population without quirks was growing much smaller at a fast rate, and within that 20%, 95% of its population was the elderly. As generations went by, the amount of quirkless children grew smaller until in Izuku's current generation, the amount of quirkless people his age within Japan could be counted with just one hand, and still have leftovers. Not to mention that quirkless people did not have a long life expectancy compared to those with quirks, as they were seen as very easy targets for villains. Even worse, they were often targets for bullies because of their unique status. Izuku almost fainted as she read an article stating that the suicide rate among quirkless teens was 85%. It would seem like Izuku had a very dark future ahead of him. She was aware that Izuku was already being bullied despite his attempts to hide it. She saw him coming home with bruises lately, but he would always say it was the result of just playing with others. She just wasn't sure who it was, but she could narrow down the guesses based on the fact most his injuries seemed to have burn marks. "Mom," said Izuku with an emotionless voice just as Inko ordered Katsudon to be delivered in hopes of cheering Izuku up. "No matter what trouble you're in, he'll save you," with a smile. Izuku slowly turned his chair and head towards his mom, his eyes already watery and filled with tears, ready to be unleashed. "A super cool hero, that's what I want to be. Can I still be?" Izuku didn't get to finish as Inko rushed to her son with tears streaming out of her eyes, as she tried to comfort him. "I'm sorry," cried Inko. "I'm so sorry." "That's not what I wanted you to say," said Izuku in his mind as waterworks poured out his eyes. "Mom, I want to be a hero." As Inko was forced to update Izuku's quirk registry as quirkless, the news about him being quirkless spread quickly among Izuku's peer, despite Inko's pleas to keep it silent. One of the kindergarten teachers was careless to talk to another teacher in front of several children that Izuku was quirkless. The said teacher didn't even bother trying to do damage control, due to a slight bias that quirkless people were placed lower than others from his point of view. The news spread among all the children in the same school, causing Izuku to be a loner, not because of his personality, but because how different and weird he was. Quirks were now the norm, and anyone without quirks was identified as weird. Now Izuku had to suffer through his school because of one teacher's tactless mistake that he never apologized for. Even the kid that Izuku protected joined the bandwagon of bullying Izuku, as he got his quirk a few days later, not wanting to be seen as part of Izuku's friends. What was even more depressing was that most of the teachers ignored Izuku in favor of Katsuki or anyone with a powerful quirk. Anything Katsuki did, including bullying, was ignored in hopes of gaining favor. It was not intentional, but the fact was people with powerful quirks were more likely to become heroes, and to be able to brag to others, saying that they helped raise a hero, or they had one in their class was something in human nature. There was nothing really to gain for siding with Izuku, though few tried their best to make everything fair. Unfortunately, Izuku received the least amount of attention, and any toys he wanted to play with were given to those with quirks. Time skipped to 2nd grade. One night, during a storm, lightning struck into a field of fruits, though nothing was damaged. Instead, one piece of fruit began to morph slightly until it had swirls around it was colored purple. Nobody noticed as it was farmed, packaged, and sent to a nearby elementary school. It was lunchtime for the 2nd graders, and Katsuki and his goons were on lunch duty to serve food for the day. The nutritious meal was composed of rice, pork and eggs, miso soup, milk, and fruit called Yubari King, though it was specially grown to be small enough to fit a kid's hands. As the children got their food, Izuku was once again last due to everyone pushing past him. The 2nd grade teacher was rather lax about discipline in general, causing Izuku to dislike him. At least the 1st grade teacher had been a nice lady who didn't allow Katsuki a free rein. As Izuku went up to get his lunch, Katsuki sneered at Izuku as usual. "Hey there, Deku," said Katsuki with a sarcastic tone, still taking up space as usual. "Hakoch-chan," stuttered Izuku as he held out his plate for the food. "Here's a special helping," taunted Katsuki as he handed Izuku a plate of rice with all the burnt parts of it, which was to say it was still edible, but rather disgusting to eat hardened rice, than compared to everything else. Izuku took the abuse as he went down the line, receiving the most pathetic-looking fish, a miso soup with barely any tofu or nori, and a strange purple fruit one of Katsuki's goons fished out. He sat down at his usual corner alone when he got his food. Nobody wanted to be his friends, either due to his status as quirkless or fear of becoming Katsuki's next target. Izuku stared at the strange fruit he got, noticing all the swirls before raising his hands to notify the teacher. "Sensei, can I get a different fruit? Mine looks weird." "Just eat what you're given," replied the teacher, not even looking up from his book. "I'm sure it's nothing dangerous." Izuku frowned and ate what he was given except for the fruit. He looked up to see Katsuki claiming another piece of the fish that was left over, before going to his hero analysis for the future notebook number 2, writing down what quirks he had seen, taking notes on the pros and cons. "Hey Deku," shouted Katsuki as he slammed his hands down on Izuku's desk, scaring him for a second. "I noticed you haven't eaten the fruit Nabi tried so hard to reserve for you." The said goon raised his fingers in mock anger as they extended. "Sorry," apologized Izuku, "I just didn't feel like eating it today. Do you want to have it?" "Fuck no," said Katsuki as he took the fruit, "but I will be a friend and help you learn how to appreciate this." With that, he stuffed the fruit into Izuku's mouth despite his protest. To prevent himself from choking to death, Izuku chewed on the fruit and swallowed it before gagging. The taste was so horrible that it tasted like he had eaten shit deep fried in poison and stomped on by sweaty sumo wrestlers. Not that he would know how that would taste like, but in short, it was disgusting. "Ikugo, what are you doing?" said the teacher with a bored tone as his eyes were glued to the book he was reading. "Just helping Deku out," replied Katsuki as he held Izuku's lips shut. "MMK, be sure to finish up cleaning the trays," nodded the teacher. As soon as the teacher said that, Izuku managed to push Katsuki off him, grabbing his milk and chugging it to get the disgusting taste off his tongue, while the others laughed at his misfortune. "Why me?" thought Izuku as class continued for the day. Late that night, after Izuku had finished writing his thoughts onto his analysis notebook, he went to take an ice bath. "At least we still have this," thought Izuku as he sank into the tub. He felt more relaxed for some reason, as though his strength was leaving him. His kept going down and down until it went past chest height. At home, the situation had grown grim. Hisashi, Izuku's father, had been informed about his son's quirkless situation and began yelling at Inko for birthing someone so useless. Hisashi did not have the father-son bond with Izuku, considering he kept working overseas and rarely called back home to see how his family was doing. In the end, he demanded a divorce and wanted to abandon Inko and Izuku, as he did not want to have what he deemed a worthless child. Unfortunately for Hisashi, Inko fought back like any animal mother protecting her baby. Hisashi wanted to cut everything off and not even pay for child support. Inko fought back, saying that Hisashi was never there to even help raise his own son. After a year in court, the judge ruled in favor of Inko after much arguing and a slip from Hisashi, who had been seeing someone much earlier despite his marriage. Inko got a nice settlement that would allow her and her son to live comfortably for the next few years, but she knew it wouldn't last unless she took measures. Despite that, Inko had been getting chubbier as the months passed due to stress eating, being unable to do anything about Izuku's predicament. "Erg, this isn't going well," said Inko as she looked down her waist to see that she was losing the herdless figure. She knew she shouldn't eat so much, but the guilt of not giving her son even her own quirk aided her, and add the fact she was now a single mother with a child whom she loved very much, but was constantly worried about his future. "Maybe a bath will help me relax," said Inko as she grabbed her belly fat and frowned. A lot of her clothes were starting to not fit her now, too. She walked into the bath to see Izuku's clothes already in the clothes bin. "Izuku, I'm coming in," said Inko as she opened the door just in time to see Izuku's head sink below the water level of the tub. "Izuku, don't stay in there too long," said Inko as she started to turn the shower head on. When Izuku didn't answer, she turned around to look and almost screamed as she saw Izuku struggling to even get up. She quickly lifted Izuku out of the bath in worry, where he took a deep breath of air. "What happened?" asked Inko in worry as soon as she got Izuku out of the bath. "I don't know," cried Izuku as he tried to wipe his tears from his face with his hands. "I suddenly felt weak in the water, and I couldn't move at all. I don't know why, though." Inko tried to comfort him, but Izuku felt even more horrible. "Koch-chan was right, I am a Deku. I am worthless," cried out Izuku. "I can't even take a bath right." "You are not worthless," said Inko, almost shouting in despair at what her son was going through. Izuku ignored her and ran out of the bathroom, wanting to go to his room and cry, despite how wet he was. Inko grabbed his wrist to prevent him from going out and slipping on the floor. It was at this exact moment that everything changed. Izuku's arm stretched, making it boing sound like a rubber band, as he kept running away, while Inko had her hand still gripped on his wrist. Izuku didn't notice as he kept running and turned a corner, heading to his room when he felt his mom's grip still on her. He turned around to try to loosen it when he noticed the change. He slowly walked back around the corner to see his mom looking at the arm in shock, as she was still gripping his wrist in a death grip. She let go as soon as she saw Izuku walking back in a daze, allowing the arm to shrink back to its normal length, as his hand flew back to Izuku, the sound of rubber retracting. "Ah!" screamed Izuku. "Ah!" screamed Inko. The screaming went back and forth for a bit before Izuku ran out of oxygen from yelling and fainted, falling towards the ground. Inko was very close to doing the same, but her motherly instincts to protect her child overrode that, and with her she quickly managed to attract a pillow from the couch towards her, and right under Izuku's head as it hit the ground. Without caring about her nudity, she used her quirk to attract the towels to her, as she quickly ran to Izuku's side in worry. Izuku slowly blinked open his eyes, trying to remember what had happened. Was it just a dream that he saw his arm stretch? It couldn't have been real. He had no quirk. The doctor had told him that the chance of him getting one was 0%. Not to mention, he was way above the age of having a quirk manifest. And finally, if he did have a quirk, it should have been something similar to his parents, preferably his mother's. "What a dream," muttered Izuku as he turned his head, noting the soft pillow before his face went flat into his mother's belly. "That's it, I really need to stop eating so much," blushed Inko as she saw her son's face imprint into her soft belly. "Are you alright, honey?" asked Inko as she pushed her dietary plans away for now. "I had the strangest dream," replied Izuku. "I thought I saw my arm stretch. But that's impossible, right?" Honey, that wasn't a dream," said Inko. Izuku blinked as he noticed he was naked with just a towel on his waist, as his mother was also naked. Luckily, he was just 6 years old, and no idea what a woman's body was. "Wait, you mean that was real?" said Izuku, getting excited once more. "If you don't believe me, try it yourself," smiled Inko. Izuku immediately stood up before blinking, not knowing how to even replicate the results. "For your quirk to work, you have to use it as if it's a part of your body, like how you use your legs to walk, or your hands to grab something." "It's a part of you," explained Inko, a bit excited now. Izuku nodded and closed his eyes for a bit before raising his right hand and punching the air, willing his hand to stretch. The results made Izuku and Inko cry with happiness as Izuku's arm began to stretch, his fist flying in the air as it finally stopped when it hit the bathroom wall, going at least 5 meters. When the fist bounced off the bathroom wall, Inko was a bit worried that Izuku had damaged his fist. "Look, Mom, it doesn't hurt," smiled Izuku as his arm retracted back, examining his right fist. He had felt the impact, but instead of feeling like something hard coming into contact with the wall, something rubbery had hit it instead. "Mom, with this can I be a hero now?" asked Izuku as he turned his watery eyes back to his mother. Inko's heart almost shattered as she tried to hold back the tears. She recognized that same look before when he had been diagnosed as quirkless and the heart-wrenching cries. Now she could see hope within those eyes. "Yes, Izuku, you can be one," smiled Inko, finally giving what Izuku wanted to hear all along. "You could always be one. I'm sorry for not saying it earlier." The two hugged each other, regardless of their current attire. After a few minutes of hugging, Inko looked Izuku into his eyes. "Izuku, what did you mean by your Deku? Who gave you that mean name? And why?" Nobody," lied Izuku, causing Inko to give the patented mother's glare. But that glare, as well as emotions running high, Izuku shrunk down and began spilling everything about how Katsuki was the chief bully, the nickname, and how it was derived from his real name, etc. Well, I'll certainly be talking with his mother about this, huffed Inko. Izuku shook his head. "It's alright. I don't want to get Koch-chan in trouble. I know despite all this, he really wants to be a hero. He still needs to learn," said Inko calmly. "Don't worry, I'm sure Masuki would appreciate what her son's been up to. If you do care about him, then sometimes you need to take action, curb some of his more distasteful behavior, otherwise, it could affect his future." Seeing the flawless reasoning from his mother, he could only agree to it. "Now then, the biggest question is how you got your quirk when the doctor said it was impossible," concluded Inko. Izuku began his high-speed muttering as he reviewed over what happened since he woke up for the day. Inko could only sigh as he had inherited this annoying trait from herself. She constantly did this when she was reviewing bills, ingredients, or investments. Inko resolved to fix this habit for the both of them. "Izuku!" shouted Inko, interrupting Izuku's thoughts. "Was there something different you did today?" Izuku pondered for a bit before remembering the nasty fruit he ate and brought that up. Inko's forehead grew thick as Katsuki force-feeding her child something that could have been poisonous, but she was more angry at how the teacher didn't even seem to care, nor look when Izuku complained. The funny and ironic part, in the story at least, was the Katsuki was now the one responsible for giving Izuku a quirk. Just as Izuku finished, both of them sneezed and shivered before remembering they were in the nude. "Come on, let's go finish that shower," said Inko as she hugged Izuku. "We can experiment more about your power and possible weaknesses." "Okay," said Izuku cheerfully. As they went back to the bathroom, a phrase floated in Inko's mind. "Some are born great, others achieve greatness, and some have greatness thrust upon them." It felt like Izuku fit the last part of the phrase. Luckily, it was the weekend for them, so Inko and Izuku began experimenting Izuku's new quirk and weaknesses. So far, they found that Izuku was okay with running water, which meant showers, and theoretically being hit by waves was safe. Standing water, such as the bath, pool, or ocean, was dangerous for him. They couldn't understand why his strength would be sapped, but they went along with it anyway. After much experimentation, they found that as long as Izuku was able to get out of the tub, as long as the water level did not pass waist height, though he lost a significant amount of strength when in water. The deeper he was, the more strength he lost while standing or sitting. Swimming was completely out of the question. As for abilities, they discovered that not only his arms stretched, but rather his whole body could do the same thing. So far, it was just the preliminary observations, as they would be heading to a quirk specialist for more in-depth detail, though obviously not the same doctor as before. It was then that Izuku asked if he could start taking some martial arts classes, as he theorized learning how to fight in conjunction with his new powers would make him stronger. Seeing as it would make his son stronger to protect himself, she agreed to it. On Sunday, she took Izuku to a popular gym place that was said to be famous, teaching up and rising heroes how to fight. It was even said Yoroi Musha, one of the popular heroes currently, had come from this program. It was there they saw the population bias on quirkless people rear its ugly head. "Alright, you want to join the summer training program for up-and-coming young heroes, right?" asked the male registrant as he looked at Inko and Izuku, who nodded in reply. "Alright, can I get a name and birth?" When given, he looked up the National Quirk database, and pulled up Izuku's file to find out his current quirk status, stating quirkless. "I'm sorry, but our summer program is full," lied the registrant. "You can try earlier next time next year, or find another place that offers a program similar to ours." Inko and Izuku frowned and were about to leave when Izuku stated he needed to use the bathroom. So Izuku went while Inko sat at one of the tables waiting when another couple with a child came in. "We want to register our child to the summer program for the young heroes," said the mother as she patted her child's head and gave his information to the registrant. "Ah, we'd be happy to train a boy with a quirk like his," smiled the registrant. "A rock fist quirk would definitely get him far in the hero life. Luckily we still have spots open for the summer program. You were smart to come here early to register." Inko's jaw dropped as her temper grew, but waited patiently until the parents took the child away and stomped up to the registrant. "What was with that?" demanded Inko at the surprised and slightly sweating registrant. "Oh, you still here?" said the registrant nervously. "You just told me that there was no more room," growled Inko, a picture of a lioness roaring in anger starting to grow behind her. "Then why is it that child just got in?" "Oh, my bad," panicked the registrant. "My mistake, I pulled up the wrong program for you. Here, go ahead and sign this one to enter into the program. I'll waive the fee down from 5,000 yen per month to 3,000 yen as atonement." Inko nodded and was about to sign the contract when she noticed the top part was surreptitiously covered. She removed it to see it was to sign up for some aerobics class for old people for only 1,000 yen per month. "Stop trying to jip me," growled Inko as she shoved the contract and pen into the registrant's face. "What's going on?" asked the manager as he came to investigate. After a brief talk with the registrant, the manager pulled Inko to the side to talk. "What's with this?" hissed Inko. "I wanted to register my son to your program, and You have to look at it from our standpoint," interrupted the manager. "We are teaching future heroes at a rather discounted price. We teach them how to use their quirks in conjunction with fighting. We have equipments that are second best from schools like UA. It takes a lot of money to fund this all. So we have to be a bit selective on who can join. Plus, if any of our students do become famous heroes, their names can be attributed to our gym, giving us more prestige and funding." He took a breath and continued on. "It's admirable that your son wants to be a hero, but you can't let him daydream or chase impossible dreams. He's quirkless, meaning he'll never be a hero. And that would just be a waste of yen on both you and us." Inko sighed mentally as she forgot to take Izuku to the nearest government office to update Izuku's quirk status. Yet this was a blessing in disguise, as now she knew this place had a lack of empathy needed for heroes to learn. All they cared about was how much money they could get off of someone's name. She did not want her son to grow up to be someone like Captain Celebrity, a new hero who had come from the USA. That hero had let fame gone to his head during his time in America. Still, the fact the manager was putting her son down was enough to tempt Inko to show him that he was wrong, that her son did have a quirk and could be a hero, but she held her head high and pushed the manager away, before pulling her son with her, as soon as he got out of the bathroom. There were other places they could go. "Mom?" asked Izuku to a tired Inko. "Is there no opening? I can try next year. Or I can just train myself with Koch-chan if money is a problem." No, just mommy wants to make sure you get a good teacher," replied Inko as she sat down on a bench. They had been through multiple dojos and gyms offering heroship guidance and training, just to meet the same type of bias. Some were blunter in telling Inko the truth, some were even more roundabout. One tried to extort more yen for Izuku to attend, and even made rather inappropriate gestures, as if trying to seduce her. That one, she sent flying off with a rather hard slap, followed by a mug to his crotch, using her quirk to attract the mug to her before throwing it. At this rate, it would better to just enroll Izuku into a regular martial arts dojo that didn't judge based on quirks. She didn't want Izuku to inherit Katsuki's lack of a filter from his mouth either, though she doubted Izuku would catch it. Just as she made the decision, a flyer came flying right past them. Izuku noticed something about fighting, and tried to grab it out of midair with his new quirk, stretching his arm out. Still not used to his new quirk, he completely missed it, but Inko saw what he wanted and used her quirk to attract the flyer. Both of them took a look to see it was an ad flyer about learning Chinese kung fu and building character at a dojo they hadn't heard of. It wasn't too far that Izuku couldn't run there after school, but it had a rather abandoned area. Inko had been prepared to toss it when Izuku shook his head. "Something tells me this is the place," insisted Izuku. "Alright, last one," huffed Inko as she stood back up. "I haven't gotten this much exercise in ages." They made it just to see a small group of people already crowding around the entrance of the dojo. Curious, they joined the group, standing next to a couple and their orange-haired daughter. "Hi, I'm Itsuka. Itsuka Kendo," introduced the girl as soon as Izuku stood next to them. "I'm Izuku Midoriya," stuttered Izuku while mentally screaming in his mind that he was talking with the girl. "You here to also learn how to fight?" asked Itsuka. "My dad suggested this place as he knows that the master is someone who knows how to kick butt." Itsuka began to pretend to make kung fu styles, causing Izuku to laugh and join in. Inko smiled at the possibility of a new friend, and began talking with Itsuka's parents. "So what's your quirk?" asked Itsuka out of interest. "Mine's big fist. I can make my hands grow big." Izuku was about to reply when a voice interrupted their conversation. "Hey, it's Deku. What are you doing here, worthless? Hoping to be useful somehow by learning how to fight? You should already know that you'll never amount to anything." Izuku and Itsuka turned around to see that it was one of Izuku's old bullies, the plump child with wings. Except for this time, he was much whiter than before, and it looked like his wings could barely support him. "Sashi, that's not nice," said the mother, who was just as white as he was. "But it's true," said the name Sashi. "He wants to be a hero even though he's quirkless." Whispers began to grow from the crowd as a few children and parents took a step away for Izuku and Inko. Now, it's none of our business if a child wants to chase an impossible dream," said the mother condescendingly. "Though as a mother to another, I would suggest you teach your child not to chase impossible dreams. Reality is much harsher than he knows, and the sooner he learns it the better." Izuku was about to cry while Inko was about to yell when Itsuka stepped forward in between Sashi, who was taunting teasing Izuku, and Izuku. Shut up, shouted Itsuka. Izuku isn't worthless. You're just a big meanie. Haha, look, Deku needs a girl to protect him, cackled Sashi. What are you going to do? I'll swat you down like a fat bug, growled Itsuka as her hands grew bigger. Before anyone could do or say anything, a loud crack came forth from the entrance, causing everyone to stiffen up and look towards the source. A middle-aged woman with closed eyes stood before them all with a walking stick up to her waist height stood before them all. I see you're all here to learn today, said the woman with a commanding tone, but before we even start, you there boy. Me? Asked Izuku as the woman pointed her staff at him. Ah, sorry, not you, the boy next to you, said the woman as she redirected her staff. Me? Said Sashi. Yes, you can go home, I have no intention of teaching you, stated the woman as she turned around. Everybody else, follow me. What? Shouted Sashi's mother as she stomped forward. The nerve of you. How could you not teach my previous Sashi, you all? She didn't get to finish as a rock went flying right past her cheek. I said beat it, replied the woman, who hadn't even turned around. I don't teach brats with no sense of honor or morale. The woman had hit a rock on the ground with her stick and sent it flying without even looking back. Not to mention, the air suddenly tensed up, causing most of them to step back in fear. Fine, said the mother. Sashi, we're leaving. We can find a better place than here. Especially if they're going to take that kid. With that note, they left, as well as a few other families. The remaining people stood still as the woman began to fade from sight before Itsuka stepped forward, pulling Izuku with her. Come on, let's go, said an excited Itsuka while Izuku started to smile. The crowd followed the two children into the dojo to see a well-lit room with wooden floors and tatami mats in the middle. Come on here and register, stated the woman, pointing to a table with two people waving at them. On the table were application forms and pens for them to fill out. Wow, old school much, muttered one of the parents, only to get hit on the head by the woman once more. Listen here, stated the woman, I am the Grand Master of this dojo, name's Rikai, but you can call me Grandmaster or Old Hag, I don't care. One rule, I don't care what type of quirk you have. You come here to work out on your body and how to fight without actively using them. If you want to experiment with your quirk along with your fighting style, you can do it after class time in the back or during specific class times in the week. Prices will be told at the registration table. As they were all registering, Izuku wondered out loud why Rikai's eyes were always closed. It could be she's blind, said Izuku nervously, yet she seemed to be able to hear everything we said, even from far away. And she never turned to even aim her stone. Her quirk might be something related to sonar touch. Not bad brat, said Rikai, suddenly appearing behind Izuku, causing him to yelp and jump into Izuku's hands, who quickly used her quirk to hold his weight. You're right, I'm blind, stated Rikai. My quirk is an emitter type called sonar. I use my hearing to tell me where people are like a bat uses echolocation. I lost my sight due to some accident, but I trained not only my quirk, but my whole body to get used to it. I've trained it to the point I can hear and feel a person's movement based on their muscles, and when they tap the ground. That's so cool, said Izuku as his eyes shone with excitement. I'd be more excited, but can you get down? Asked Itsuka as she felt her wrists starting to strain a bit. Oh, sorry, apologized Izuku as he got off before whipping out his hero analysis for the future notebook number 2, and started writing in it. I have a feeling I'll like you too brats, chuckled Rikai before walking away. Time skip, beginning of 6th grade. Izuku still had no friends at his elementary school, but at his new dojo, he had plenty. Some new arrivals had come, and some old ones left. Still, Izuku played with Itsuka the most, experimenting with their quirks and sparring against each other. Itsuka was the closest to him out of all of the other students, which made it worse when it was announced that Itsuka would be moving to another prefecture due to her parents' jobs. I don't want you to leave, sniffed Izuku as he held Itsuka's hands. You're my best friend. Idiot, a real man doesn't cry, placated Itsuka, though her eyes were tearing up too at the loss of her friends. Come on, you want to be a hero too, don't you? Yay, sniffed Izuku as he used his shoulders to wipe off the never-ending tears. I want to go to UA High School, just like All Might did. Then let's make a promise, said Itsuka, that 4 years from now, we'll see each other again at UA High. I'm going to continue training still, so I better see you there, too. Nodded Izuku before the two of them exchanged hugs. Plus, we can still talk to each other by phone or computer, added Itsuka. Yay. I'll be sure to become stronger, proclaimed Izuku. I'll become a hero like All Might. The years passed on by as Izuku continued to experiment with his powers, as well as continue learning from the dojo. In fact, Rikai sent him out to a few other dojos to learn a few more styles to complement his quirk and fighting style, though his basis would always be Rikai's kung fu style. As for his quirk, he found out after heavy experimentation, scans, and other sources, that his whole body seemed to be made of rubber, though it did not affect his senses. He was largely immune to blunt attacks, and to Inko's fright when he insisted on testing it, immune to bullets to a certain degree. At a quirk hospital, he learned that bullets that were round couldn't pierce through his skin, and would end up rebounding back to the source. However, the doctors theorized that modern bullets, which most were built for piercing, would just go through him. The most he could maybe rebound was maybe a .2 caliber bullet. A shotgun pellet was debatable, but nobody really wanted to test that out. Izuku was grounded for a month for even contemplating that test. The years have also changed Izuku. No longer was he the shy stuttering student, but someone who would stand up against those who were bullied. A lot of them were actually Katsuki's would-be victims until Izuku intervened. Despite having a quirk and being able to fight back, Izuku stood there and took the hits until the bullies were tired. There were strict rules about quirk usage, and despite the fact that Katsuki would amplify his punches with a blast, Izuku took them without a flinch, nor using his quirk to block them. With his quirk's passive ability, the only real damage was the slight burns from Katsuki's quirk. Due to that, many students in his middle school assumed Izuku didn't have a quirk, or if he did, it was quite useless. Even if Katsuki did get caught, he was usually let go with a small slap on the wrist. Too many students and teachers praised Katsuki and his flashy quirk, knowing he would get far into the realm of heroes. Despite being blunt and brutal, Katsuki showed instincts and reflexes above human level, along with amazing talent in fighting. He attended a few fighting classes here and there, but for the most part, he was self-trained. Not only that, but he was tied for first at Aldera Junior School in academics. It was because of all of this that teachers would let him off easily in hopes he would bring fame and prestige to the school. Izuku didn't care. He had no real friends at his middle school. All his friends were at the dojo, along with the Grandmaster Ryuka and Itsuka via text and emails. He stopped caring about proving himself to Katsuki that he wasn't useless. Katsuki wasn't someone worth proving to. He had completely stopped calling him Koch-chan, and called him by his last name Bakugo, whenever he needed to address him, which was very few in class, and quite a bit out of class while defending others. Of course, that didn't stop Katsuki from calling him Deku still. Alright students, began the teacher to his third-year students of Aldera Junior School. You guys are all third-year students. It's time to seriously think about your future. He dropped the career forms on his table and slapped the top of the stack to emphasize his point as he continued. I would start handing out these career forms, but with a flourish, he tossed the papers into the air, his serious face morphing into a dreamy smile. I assume you all want to become heroes. Everyone except 2 students replied excitedly with a shout and showing off their quirks, some subtle and some not so subtle. Yes, you all have wonderful quirks, said the teacher kindly before getting back down to reality. But don't forget, it is against the rules to use them in school. Ha, teacher. Don't lump me with these losers. Barked Katsuki with a derisive laugh, his feet on his desk. He had been one of the 2 students to not show off their quirk. As if any of them are within my league with their shitty quirks. The students began to express their outrage against Katsuki, to which he merely replied that they were all extras, and should shut up like one. Ah, yes, Bakugo, if I remember correctly, you're applying for UA High School, right? Said the teacher as he glanced down his clipboard. The students began chattering in shock and admiration at this news. That high school. I heard the cutoff score for this year was 79, their acceptance rates are very low. The cutoff score is always getting higher and higher. Not only is it the top national school, but I heard their entrance examination is so harsh that a lot of applicants were injured. That's why all you chatterbox are all extras, grinned Katsuki as he leaped onto his desk from his chair in one fluid motion. I aced the mock exam with the highest score in this school. I'm the only one who's got what it takes to get into UA. I'll surpass All Might as top hero, and become the best hero in history. Not to mention, I'll also be the richest people in the world. Oh, now I think about it, Midoriya is also applying to UA, noted the teacher after Katsuki's speech and savage grin. Katsuki completely froze at that statement, as the rest of the students turned around to stare at Izuku. Izuku had been completely ignoring everything, writing down notes on his future hero analysis notebook Vol 13, until he heard his name called out. He looked up to see everyone looking at him before 2-3 RDS of them broke out into laughter, the latter 1/3 having conflicting emotions on their face. Katsuki wasn't among the laughing crowd, though. Midoriya, in the hero course. Laughed a student with razor-sharp teeth. You can't get into a hero course, let alone UA, by just grades alone, taunted a student whose quirk was literally just having a long nose and a heightened sense of smell. Though the third of the class that wasn't laughing at him, they did nothing to defend him either. The teacher also did absolutely nothing to stop the laughter. Deku, shouted Katsuki as he slammed his hand onto Izuku's desk and used his quirk once more to make the desk explode. Izuku reacted by moving his notebook from safety as his desk exploded, though he calmly sat there without moving an inch, not even batting an eye. You damn piece of shit. Cussed Katsuki, thinking you're the same league as me. You fucking quirkless. His hands were still steaming, and sparks were flying out. Izuku sighed as he stared at Katsuki, giving a swift glance to the teacher to see him doing absolutely nothing to defuse the situation. The same style of treatment for almost all other teachers in the years past. Nobody really wanted to get Katsuki in trouble, due to his temper and potential to be a hero. Whether you feel insulted or not, it still doesn't change the fact that it's my decision to apply there, not yours, said Izuku. The hell it isn't. shouted Katsuki. You think just because you're taking some lame-ass martial arts class from some lame-ass old hag, you can rub shoulders against me? The most useful you'll ever be is a punching bag. If I recall, said Izuku dryly, that lame-ass hag kicked your ass when you tried to force yourself into the dojo. Katsuki bristled at that comment. They had been in 5th grade when Katsuki heard from his mother, who had been talking with Inko, that Deku was taking lessons from a dojo. His mother Mitsuki decided to see if he wanted to do the same, but at a more nearby gym. Katsuki decided to take it upon himself to go to Izuku's dojo and attempt to show off. He had never been so humbled that day when he tried to attack one of the students, only for Rikai to intervene and effortlessly subdue him before kicking him out, while calling him a brat. So what? Snorted Katsuki, quickly recovering from that flashback. You still got nothing, Shitston. Izuku stood up, facing Katsuki face to face. The years of training at the dojo had given Izuku a slim but muscular figure, perfectly suited for his fighting style. Not that anybody could tell at the moment since he was wearing his uniform. But still, his training made him tall enough that he could stare into Katsuki's eyes face to face. I don't care what you think, nor will I cater to your ego, snapped Izuku. Don't forget, I also aced the mock exam and tied with me for first place. Katsuki's hands began to smoke again as he growled when the bell rang, signifying homeroom was over. Now, get to your seats, students, placated the teacher. Your next instructor will be here shortly. This isn't over yet, Deku, snarled Katsuki as he sat down. Nice talking to you too, Bakugo, replied Izuku as he sat down. Thief. Somebody stop him. Cried a store owner as a vaguely shaped humanoid sludge with jeans ran out of the convenience store with stacks of bills stuck on his body. Catch me if you can. Cackled the sludge villain as he pushed a woman down, who had used her quirk to create a shield to protect herself. His arm hit a pole and slid right through without hindering him at all. Hey, is there no hero nearby? The guy's taking advantage of the chaos this morning, where most of them are busy dealing with other things. There are just so many people who just abuse their quirks or don't know what to do with them beside crime. A rather skinny man with pants and a white shirt that was way too large for him exited a supermarket, carrying with him 2 bottles of soda while coughing before looking at what was happening. He was so skinny that he almost looked like a skeleton with no muscle or fat, just skin. There seems to be no end to them, is there? Sighed a civilian. The skinny man suddenly began to transform, growing taller and muscular, until the clothes he was wearing suddenly fit him quite snugly, showing all his muscles in their glory. There's an end, stated the figure with a smile as he walked forward, causing the civilians to turn and gasp. Why? Because I'm here. The villain took a peek at the commotion and gasped in fear while civilians began to adore the figure. Holy crap, it's a looks like the incident this morning has cleared up, thought Izuku to himself as class was over. Better get home and finish up my analysis for the day, and organize them. He grabbed his notebook and stashed it away in his backpack, ready to leave when he heard a voice. Hey Deku. We ain't done here yet. Sighing, Izuku turned around to see Katsuki with his 2 lackeys, while the other students stood by watching curiously. What do you want, Bakugo? Asked Izuku tiredly. Easy, I'm going to make this simple, sneered Katsuki. You see, the best heroes out there, they showed signs of greatness even as students. They got stories all the way from their years as kids. Me, I'm going to be the first and only one to get into UA from this shitty public middle school. I guess you could call me a perfectionist. So vain, thought many students who were watching this, though they wouldn't voice it out. So in other words, smiled Bakugo as he put his hand onto Izuku's shoulders before it began to start smoking. Don't even think about applying to UA. Not to the hero courses. Not even to the general, support, or business. Don't even consider going there. Izuku glanced down at the smoking hand before looking back at Katsuki with a dull glance. Without a warning, Izuku suddenly grabbed Katsuki by the wrist with his hand, wrenching Katsuki's hand out of his shoulder, and with a swift takedown, put him in an arm lock. Before Katsuki could react to this shock, Izuku already let go and bumped him with a waist bump, pushing him down to the ground. You've had your word, now here's mine now, Bakugo, said Izuku as he stared down at Katsuki, looking shocked. It's been my dream to attend UA. I've made a promise to a friend to get into UA. I'm not about to break both of them just for your selfish needs. Me getting into UA won't hinder you getting in. If you're done spouting, I'm going. With that, Izuku started to walk towards the door. You'll never get in, Deku, shouted Katsuki as he quickly stood up. You're just a quirkless nobody. Izuku froze for a second before glancing back at Katsuki. You believe what you want to assume. What's that supposed to mean? Shouted Katsuki, but Izuku had left already. Izuku quietly walked home, thinking about his plans for the next 10 months. He would need to increase his training if he wanted to make sure he made it into UA, and certainly get more sparring practice in, even if it meant begging Rikai to spar with him. He shivered at that thought for a bit before putting his thoughts back on track with training. His phone suddenly rang, and he quickly turned it on to see a message for Itsuka. Just 10 more months. You better make it into UA. Itsuka. Izuku smiled before firing a text back to her. It was at this moment while he passed through a tunnel when the sludge villain seeped through the manhole cover, coalescing behind Izuku. A medium-sized invisibility cloak to capture, muttered the sludge villain before leaping towards Izuku, who had turned around after hearing the noise of sludge seeping through the manhole cover, to capture him. Izuku immediately flung his arm back, stretching into he grabbed a pull, and let it drag him away. It was just in time, too, as the villain missed, almost grabbing his legs to prevent him from escaping. Now, kid, I'm only trying to take over your body, smiled the sludge villain. I promise, after 45 seconds, you won't even feel a thing. Izuku narrowed his eyes as he began to analyze his opponent. He had two rather huge misshapen yellow eyes and a white mouth filled with sharp teeth. His opponent seemed to be made of some sort of fluid, so physical force seemed out. I can't just play around, I need a body strong enough to defeat him. That or to hold hostage, thought the villain before sending multiple tentacles to capture Izuku. Izuku glared for a second before dodging the tentacles, making violent cuts and movements that would have torn a person's ligaments or muscles in the ankle, through continuous use of set movements, if it wasn't for the fact that Izuku was made out of rubber now. Even someone who trained their ankles wouldn't have been able to move after a few dodges. So glad Rikai taught me this footwork, thought Izuku as he continued to dodge before beginning to analyze how to defeat the villain. Toshinori Yagi, or better known with his hero name All Might, punched the manhole cover out of the way before climbing out of the sewers, pursuing the sludge villain while still carrying his groceries. He blinked as he witnessed a civilian no older than perhaps 15 years old, dodging the slippery villain that had almost escaped him. Wow, those are some movements, whistled All Might in his mind. Such moves would perplex many opponents. He watched as Izuku dodged another attack, landing on his hands before spinning his body with a turn of his wrist to dodge another attack. All Might quickly slapped himself out of the trance he had put himself in, remembering he had a job to do as well as a time limit. Damn, this bastard is slippery, thought the sludge villain. His movements are so weird, it's like catching a ghost. How about an all-out attack? Shouted the sludge villain as he fired multiple tentacles to surround Izuku. You shall not do so, exclaimed All Might, announcing his presence while causing both Izuku to stop in admiration of his favorite hero, while the sludge villain halted in fear and shock. Why? Because I am here. Shit, shouted the sludge villain, swinging a larger tentacle with the shape of a hand at the end to attack All Might. All Might easily ducked under the attack and cocked his right arm back. Texas smash. All Might threw a right straight so powerful from a distance that the wind pressure exerted from the punch sent the sludge villain flying, disintegrating into small manageable pieces. Izuku himself managed to brace himself from the strong winds, grabbing onto a pole to stabilize him, before realizing that All Might had calculated in Izuku and aimed the attack, so it wouldn't affect him as much. Izuku stood there in awe as All Might emptied the soda bottles from his grocery bag he had been carrying with him, before stuffing the main body of the sludge villain into it, which wasn't hard to tell, based on where the eyes and mouth were. Are you alright? Asked All Might towards Izuku, who snapped out of his trance. Yay? Gushed Izuku in excitement. Oh my gosh, you're All Might. I'm a huge fan of yours. I want to be a hero just like you. You came in time again, just like you always do. Can I have your autograph? All Might laughed with his booming voice and smile, while Izuku blushed before giving All Might his notebook. Hahaha, I'm glad to see you're alright. I'm sorry you got involved with that villain. I usually don't make such rookie mistakes. But in any case, you were quite helpful in distracting him long enough so I could come. Future Hero Analysis Full 13. Asked All Might curiously as he saw the title of the book. May I take a look? Yes, of course, babbled Izuku. As All Might flipped through a few pages, scanning Izuku's analysis and drawings, his eyes widening in a bit of terror. These really are detailed, thought All Might as he read an analysis about the newest hero that had just made her debut this morning, Mount Lady. Just a few hours after debut, and Izuku had already analyzed her quirk, estimation of how tall she grew, how many seconds it took to grow and shrink, and even small stats chart. Oh my goodness. These notes are very detailed. I shudder to think if a villain managed to get these. And there's 12 more of these. Thought All Might, maybe he's the one. No, too early to tell. Not to mention, my old sidekick Sir Night-Eye has a candidate himself. Finding an empty page, All Might signed the notebook, filling the whole 2 pages himself. He handed it back to Izuku, taking time to memorize the boy's name. He was sure this boy would become a hero if he was this dedicated to his studies. Thank you very much. Gushed Izuku, quickly bowing towards All Might. Well then, I must take this villain to the authorities, said All Might with a booming voice, putting the soda bottles into his pockets, for a pro doesn't just battle enemies, but time itself. Thank you for your support, and farewell. With that, All Might took a giant leap into the sky, quickly disappearing from Izuku's view. Due to the speed of All Might as well as his hastiness to leave, neither of them noticed the soda bottles slipping out of All Might's pockets. Oh my gosh, I have his signature. This'll be a family heirloom, said Izuku as he began his bad habit of muttering 1,000 words, stringing them all together. It was a habit that rarely came back unless he got too excited, one of which being having met All Might face to face. Izuku checked the time on his phone before dashing home. Mom, I'm home. I'll be going out for my run as well as heading to the dojo, shouted Izuku as he quickly dropped his backpack and started changing his clothes. Alright, be sure to have your cell phone on you, said Inko as she looked up from her computer, doing a job as both a virtual assistant and transcriptionist. Ever since Izuku gained quirk and went to a dojo, Inko no longer ate excess food from guilt. Now, some people might say she looked even more beautiful with age. This was because she had some help from Mitsuki, Katsuki's mother. Mitsuki was a former idol until she met her husband on a job and chased him down, retiring when she got married. Still, she had several contacts that she kept, one of them being a fitness trainer. Inko and Mitsuki became gym partners, with Mitsuki pushing Inko to get fit, while also maintaining her own body. Inko began to regain her thin figure and more, causing quite a stir in the gym she went to. In fact, one of the publishers of a fashion magazine passed by the two of them and asked Inko and Mitsuki to model for them. Both could tell the man had other perverted reasons based on his face, so Mitsuki blatantly refused while flaunting her body before dragging Inko out. As if to spite the man, they appeared on another fashion magazine that Mitsuki's husband, Misaru, had a connection to for one subscription. Sure, their sons' relationships weren't good, but it didn't stop the mothers from being friends. I'll be back before dinner. What are we having? Said Izuku as he changed into a green workout shirt and sweat shorts. What do you want? Asked Inko. Can we have katsudon? Begged Izuku, please. Added Izuku when Inko made a thinking pose. Oh, alright, smiled Inko. Be safe in your jog now. Will do, replied Izuku as he grabbed his phone, plugged in some headphones to listen to music, and grabbed his thermos filled with his homemade drink full of electrolytes for his workout. That fucking Deku, cursed Katsuki as he was walking with his flunkies, crushing a can of soda he had finished before tossing it into the recycling bin. Next time I see him I'll kill him. Dude, don't you think you went a little far? Asked Nabi, the boy with extending fingers as he grabbed a cigarette from the other lackey. Yay, weren't you childhood friends? Asked the other lackey as he smoked one. It's his fault, muttered Katsuki. Everything he does just pisses me off. Piece of shit doesn't have a quirk, and he thinks he can be a hero. Who says he doesn't have one? Replied the lackey. It could be really subtle. Every time you beat him, he seems to take it better than anybody else. Broken punched him in the stomach several times with his rock fists, and Izuku walked away without a problem. So many punches should have caused some bleeding. Could be a shittier version of the hero fat gum with his fat absorption. Nah, it's probably something he learned from all those so-called legit martial arts, cackled Nabi. Still doesn't change he's just a punching bag. Katsuki kicked a bottle full of liquid as hard as he could to vent off his frustration, letting bounce on the wall before landing in a trash can without the cap. When he smelled smoke, he turned around to his lackeys in anger. What did I tell you about fucking smoking around me? Get caught, and it'll go on my record and make me look bad. His flunkies didn't reply, but rather pointed behind Katsuki in fear. What? Said Katsuki as he started to turn around. An invisible cloak with a great quirk, shouted the sludge villain as he pounced onto Katsuki. All Might made a few more leaps, jumping off rooftops to rooftops before stopping on one and sat down. He began to emit smoke and coughed a bit of blood before transforming back to his emaciated form, his real name Toshinori Yagi. Just need a few minutes to rest, sighed Toshinori, back in his real form now. He noticed his time limit using One for All was slowly decreasing as the days passed and needed to pass the torch soon. His injury would not be healing anytime soon, having lost his stomach and his lungs in a wreck. Not only was he fighting time for himself being able to use One for All, the longer he delayed passing the torch, the more time his arch-nemesis had to recover and attempt to take over Japan once more. It was why he was taking a teaching post at his alma mater, UA, in hopes of preparing students as well as finding or evaluating a successor. Suddenly, he heard an explosion a few blocks away from where he had jumped past. Quickly checking his pockets, he paled when he noticed the bottles were missing. Oh no, gasped Toshinori before quickly running down the stairs. Izuku was jogging down the streets with a light sheen of sweat coming down his forehead. Taking a small break to take a sip of his drink, he looked around before seeing smoke clouds coming up from a few blocks over. Curious, he jogged over to see what was the commotion and maybe take in more data for his notes. He took out his cell in hopes to take a few notes since he didn't have his notebook. As he got closer, he could see the smoke clouds growing bigger along with explosions. Finally, he reached his destination to see it was at a shopping district and pushed through the crowd to get a better look at what was happening. Wait, isn't that the same villain from the tunnel? Thought Izuku to himself as soon as he saw the sludge villain. Didn't All Might capture him? How'd he get away? Must be very good at slipping away to escape All Might himself. He began to analyze the situation on both the villain and the heroes currently on site. D-terms mainly focused on punches and grapples, which meant against the sludge villain, who seemed impervious to such attacks, he was helpless. He didn't have power like All Might did to blow the sludge villain away. Kamui Wood was helpless against the explosions and fire the villain was putting out, destroying his wood-based quirk anytime he tried something. He instead focused on rescuing as many people as he could. Backdraft might have been helpful, but he was more focused on rescue-type missions, and was currently doing his best to prevent the fire from spreading. Mount Lady, the newest hero, was unable to do anything as the streets were too narrow for her to step in with her gigantification quirk. Izuku quickly made note that Mount Lady was unable to adjust the size she grew, meaning she was stuck with 2 default forms, and already started listing off possible cons to such a quirk. 2 more heroes were on the scene, one with a baseball motif and another with a plague doctor mask, but neither of them could do anything either. Why aren't the heroes doing anything? Asked one civilian. Apparently, the villain captured a schoolboy and is abusing his quirk, creating explosions. None of the heroes can get close in fear of harming the hostage, replied another. We need a hero with a suitable quirk to deal with this, shouted latter of the heroes. Izuku's eyes focused on the slime hero, who had turned around just in time for Izuku to see Katsuki Bakugo, a one-time childhood friend to someone whom he heavily disliked, trapped within the villain, struggling to get out. His eyes were no longer one of arrogance and contempt, but filled with desperation, fear, and pain, begging for someone to help him. Izuku didn't even think about what he was going to do next. He sprinted right past the police officers and heroes without a second thought. Toshinori, who had been in the crowd for a while, was gripping his injury as he thought to himself how pathetic he was, unable to do anything. When he saw Izuku run out, he mentally screamed in shock why such a kid was running out there. Hey kid, come back here, shouted Death Arms, too surprised to grab Izuku. You? Blurred the sludge villain, remembering who delayed him long enough for All Might to come. Katsuki could only widen his eyes in shock as he tried to struggle out of the villain's grip. Izuku ignored all those shouting as he focused on the sludge villain, his mind racing as adrenaline pumped through his body. The sludge villain sent his tentacles towards Izuku, who managed to dodge them once more. His mind flashed back to some notes he wrote about Kamui Wood, and quickly kicked some rubble up before kicking them right into the sludge villain's eyes, followed by his thermostat. The action caused the villain to flinch, allowing Katsuki to breathe, as the villain loosened his hold on him. Now? Thought Izuku to himself as he took a step forward and hurled his arms forward, allowing them to stretch. Katsuki's eyes widened in shock as Izuku's hands went right through the sludge, and with enough momentum, managed to grab Katsuki by his torso. Izuku quickly extended his fingers to wrap around him. What in the world? Thought most of the heroes watching Izuku in action, already shocked by his impressive dodging skills. Izuku began to pull as hard as he could, trying to get Katsuki out. Pull kid, pull, shouted Death Arms, breaking out of his shock and rushing forward to help him. Nu? Shouted the sludge villain as he tried to bring Katsuki back in. Katsuki's upper torso was freed when the villain began pulling him back in. Let go of me, fucker, howled Katsuki as he aimed his right hand at the villain, and let loose the most powerful explosion he could manage. The villain roared in pain as he let go of Katsuki, who flew right into Izuku. Why the hell are you helping me, Deku? Growled Katsuki as Izuku let go of him. My legs just started moving on my own, replied Izuku as he kept his eyes on the villain. But despite the fact that we don't get along, I still want to be a hero, and it's a hero's job to put his or her life on the line. Plus you look like you needed saving. At that last part, he gave a small smile and laugh. Toshinori heard all this and felt a chill go down his spine. Can it be have I finally found him? The next torch holder, thought Toshinori. I'll kill you, screamed the villain as he whipped his arms out. Everyone quickly dodged out of the way before Izuku shot himself up into the air. I'm ending this, shouted Izuku before he cocked his right arm back, letting it stretch as far as possible, while twisting his arm repeatedly. The link shocked many as it kept going and going, surpassing Mount Lady's height. The slime villain fired off tentacles to attack Izuku, but found his attacks blocked by Kamui Wood's attack. I won't let you, Evildor, shouted Kamui Wood as he used his quirk to tangle up all the villain's attack. Izuku was already falling down, letting gravity do its work, while letting it add momentum to his attack. With a roar, Izuku fired off his corkscrew punch, letting it spin as it slammed into the sludge villain. The attack was powerful enough that upon contact, it dispersed the sludge villain into pieces, drilling right through him until it hit the ground, shattering the concrete on impact, and sending the sludge villain into pieces. As the crowds cheered in and rushed in to greet the heroes, Toshinori Yagi stood in the back, his whole body actually quivering in excitement and happiness, as his eyes locked onto Izuku's blushing form as people praised him. I found him, shivered Toshinori. I finally found my successor. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means the world to me, and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-ifs coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing the power of imagination. Goodbye everyone.